The sound of metal crunching against asphalt is something you feel in your teeth before you even process the noise. It was a sickening, grinding screech that cut through the humid afternoon air in the school parking lot. I was sitting on the low concrete wall near the library, waiting for the bus, when I saw it happen. It was like watching a slow-motion disaster movie. My brother, Dylan, was tearing through the lot in his brand-new Genshin blue Porsche 911 Carrera. It was a beast of a machine, a six-figure birthday gift from our parents for his 17th birthday. A gift he didn't deserve, didn't earn, and definitely didn't know how to handle. He wasn't looking at the road. He was looking at his phone, probably texting one of his sycophant friends, a smirk plastered on his face. Then, bam! He clipped the back wheel of a rusted bicycle ridden by Liam, a sophomore on a scholarship who worked 2 jobs just to afford his books. Liam went flying. He hit the pavement hard, skidding across the gravel, his skin shredding against the stone. The Porsche screeched to a halt. For a second, I thought Dylan would rush out to help. I thought, maybe, just maybe, there is a human being inside that entitled shell. I was wrong. Dylan stepped out of the car, inspecting his bumper. "Are you blind?" he screamed, his face turning red. "You scratched the paint. Do you have any idea how much this costs to fix?" Liam was clutching his arm, groaning in pain. Blood was trickling down his elbow. I was in the bike lane," Liam stammered, his voice shaking. "I don't care where you were," Dylan kicked the mangled wheel of Liam's bike. "You're going to pay for this, you loser. My dad will sue your family into the ground." My stomach churned with a mix of nausea and fury. This was it. This was the breaking point. I pulled out my phone. I didn't intervene immediately. I knew how this worked. If I stepped in now, it would be my word against the Golden Boys. I needed leverage. I needed receipts. I hit record. I captured everything. Dylan grabbing Liam by the collar. Dylan shoving him back onto the asphalt. Dylan laughing as he got back into his Porsche, revving the engine aggressively before peeling out of the lot, leaving an injured kid in the dust. I stopped recording, my hands trembling, not from fear, but from adrenaline. I walked over to Liam, helped him up, and called the school nurse. Then I walked straight to Principal Thompson's office and airdropped the video to his computer. "You need to see this," I said, my voice ice cold. By the time I got home, the storm had already made landfall. The living room felt like a courtroom where the verdict had already been decided. My mother was pacing back and forth, clutching a glass of wine. My father was sitting on the leather recliner, his face purple with rage. And there was Dylan, sitting on the sofa with an ice pack on a hand that wasn't even injured, playing the victim. "There she is!" Dylan pointed at me as I walked through the door. "The traitor!" "Caitlin!" My father didn't even stand up. He just barked my name like a command. "What the hell is wrong with you? Principal Thompson called. He said you submitted a video? You tried to get your own brother expelled?" "He hit a kid, Dad," I said, dropping my backpack on the floor. "He hit Liam with the car you bought him. Then he assaulted him. I just provided the evidence." "It was an accident," Mom shrieked. "Dylan said that boy swerved into him. And you edited that video to make your brother look bad. You've always been jealous of him." I stared at her, genuinely baffled by her delusion. Jealous? He could have killed someone. He committed a hit and run. "It wasn't a hit and run. I stopped. I was traumatized, and she filmed it to ruin my reputation. She hates me." Dad stood up then, looming over me. He was a big man, used to bullying his employees, and he used the same tactics at home. "You are going to fix this, Caitlin. Tomorrow morning, you are going into that school. You are going to tell Thompson that the video was taken out of context, and you are going to apologize to Dylan for embarrassing him." No, I said. The word hung in the air, heavy and absolute. Excuse me? Dad stepped closer. I said no. He's a bully. He's a criminal. I'm not lying for him anymore. The slap came so fast I didn't see it coming. It stung my cheek, hot and sharp, tears springing to my eyes instantly. You ungrateful little brat, Dad hissed. We put a roof over your head. We feed you. And this is how you repay us? By destroying this family? He snatched my phone out of my hand. You're grounded. Indefinitely. No school, no friends. You're not leaving this house until you learn some loyalty. You can't keep me from school, I argued, clutching the strap of my bag. Watch me, he sneered. Go to your room. Now. I looked at Dylan. He was smirking behind the ice pack. It was a look of pure, unadulterated triumph. He had won again, or so he thought. I turned and walked up the stairs, my cheek throbbing, my heart pounding against my ribs like a trapped bird. But I wasn't crying. Not anymore. The sound of the lock clicking from the outside was a sound I would never forget. It was final. It was the sound of a prison door slamming shut. My father had actually installed a deadbolt on my bedroom door 3 years ago, during a phase he called disciplinary restructuring, but he had rarely used it. Until tonight. I stood in the center of my room, the silence pressing in on me. They had taken my laptop. They had taken my main phone. They had even unplugged the TV. My room was essentially a holding cell with pink wallpaper and a bookshelf. Downstairs, I could hear the clatter of silverware on porcelain. They were eating dinner. I could hear Dylan laughing, that loud, braying laugh that grated on my nerves. They were celebrating, probably toasting to their victory over the rebellious daughter. They didn't even bother to bring me a plate. Hunger gnawed at my stomach, but it was overshadowed by a cold, hard resolve. For years, I had played the role of the dutiful daughter. I got straight A's, I cleaned up Dylan's messes. When he broke the neighbor's window, I took the blame. When he failed math, I did his homework. I thought if I was good enough, if I was perfect enough, they would finally see me. They would finally love me as much as they loved their golden boy. But that slap downstairs, that was the wake-up call I needed. They didn't love me. They tolerated me as an insurance policy, a backup plan, a servant. I walked over to my window. It was nailed shut. Dad had done that last summer for safety, but now I knew it was for control. I was trapped. But they made one critical mistake. They underestimated me. They thought I was just Caitlin, the quiet girl who read books and followed rules. They forgot that I was also the girl who fixed the Wi-Fi when it broke, the girl who organized the family taxes because Mom didn't understand numbers, the girl who observed everything. I knelt down beside my bed and pulled back the rug. There, one of the floorboards was loose. I had discovered it when I was 12. I pried it open with the edge of a metal ruler. Nestled in the insulation, wrapped in a Ziploc bag, was my lifeline, an iPhone 8. It was old. The screen was cracked in the corner. But it worked. I had kept it when I upgraded 2 years ago, claiming I had traded it in. I kept it charged with a portable battery bank I stole from Dylan's pile of discarded gadgets. It was my rainy day fund, my escape hatch. I powered it on. The Apple logo glowed in the dark room like a beacon of hope. My hands were steady now. The fear was gone, replaced by a clarity that felt almost clinical. I wasn't a victim anymore. I was a strategist. I connected to the neighbor's Wi-Fi. I had cracked their password months ago. It was their dog's name and birth year. People are so predictable. First, I checked my email. Nothing from the school yet. Good. Then I opened my calendar. October 14th. My eyes widened. I stared at the date, and a slow, chilling smile spread across my face. Today was October 13th. Tomorrow was my birthday. Not just any birthday. Tomorrow, I turned 18. My parents were so obsessed with protecting Dylan and controlling me that they had completely forgotten what happens when I turn 18. In their minds, I was still a child they could lock in a room, but the law, and more importantly, my grandmother, saw things differently. I opened a secure messaging app and typed in a name, Thomas Harland. Thomas was my grandmother's estate attorney. He was a shark in a suit, a man who terrified my father because he was the one person Dad couldn't bully. Me. Mr. Harland, it's Caitlin. Situation critical at home. I am currently locked in my room. They confiscated my electronics. I need to trigger the clause early. Does it activate at midnight? I watched the 3 dots dance on the screen. My heart hammered. Thomas Harland. Caitlin, are you safe? The clause activates the second you turn 18. That is at 12 a.m. tonight. Do you want me to send police? Me. No police yet. I need everything prepared. The transfer of the trust, the deed to the house, everything Grandma left me. Have the papers ready for digital signature at 12:01 a.m. Understood. I've been waiting for this day. Your grandmother wanted to ensure you were protected. I'll have the DocuSign ready. Happy early birthday, kid. I put the phone down and lay back on my bed. Downstairs, the laughter had died down. I heard heavy footsteps coming up the stairs. The lock clicked. The door creaked open. It was Mom. She held a tray with a single slice of dry toast and a glass of water. She didn't look at me. She looked at the wall, her face set in a mask of martyr-like suffering. Your father says you can eat, she said, placing the tray on the desk. He wants you to think about what you've done. You're destroying this family, Caitlin. Over what? Some poor kid who probably deserved it? I sat up, hugging my knees. Why do you hate me, Mom? The question caught her off guard. She blinked, her facade cracking for a microsecond. I don't hate you. I need you to be better. Dylan needs support. He's sensitive. You're strong. You can handle the blame. He can't. So because I'm strong, I have to be the punching bag? She sighed, the irritation returning. Stop being dramatic. Eat your toast. Tomorrow you apologize and this all goes away. She walked out, locking the door behind her again. Click. I stared at the dry toast. Tomorrow, I thought. Tomorrow, everything goes away. But not the way you think. The hours between 8 p.m. and midnight felt like an eternity. I sat in the dark, the glow of the hidden phone illuminating my face. I wasn't just waiting. I was working. My snap moment, that instant where the emotional tether to my family finally severed, had happened when Mom walked out that door. Her words echoed in my head. You're strong. You can handle the blame. She was right. I was strong. Strong enough to destroy them. I accessed the cloud server where I backed up all my files. I had folders upon folders of evidence. Not just the video of Dylan's crash today. I had years of receipts. I had photos of the bank statements showing Dad dipping into the company payroll to pay off Dylan's gambling debts from online poker. I had emails Mom sent to the school board bribing them to overlook Dylan's failing grades. I had recordings of Dad threatening his employees. I was the invisible child, the one in the background, the one they ignored. And because they ignored me, they spoke freely in front of me. I had been gathering ammunition since I was 15, unsure if I would ever use it. Tonight, I was loading the gun. I organized the files into a single encrypted folder titled The Exodus. Then I went to the police website. I didn't want to file a report just yet, not under my name, not while I was still 17 and technically under their custody. They could spin it as a teenage tantrum. I needed to wait until the clock struck 12. My stomach grumbled, protesting the meager slice of toast, but my mind was razor sharp. I thought about the hierarchy of our house. Dad was the king, ruling with fear. Mom was the queen, enabling him. Dylan was the prince, the heir who could do no wrong. And I was the peasant, the worker, the one who kept the castle running while they feasted. But they forgot one thing. The peasant held the keys to the treasury. Grandma. My grandmother, Margaret, was the only person who ever saw me. She was the one who built the family fortune, a chain of successful hardware stores that Dad inherited and was slowly running into the ground. 2 years ago, before she passed, she pulled me aside. I remembered the smell of her lavender perfume and the dry, papery feel of her hands. "They are fools, Katie," she had whispered. "Your father is a weak man pretending to be strong, and your mother is blind. They will ruin you if you let them. Don't let them." She had left me a legacy, a secret weapon. My parents thought Grandma left everything to Dad. They thought the trust fund was under Dad's control until I was 25. They were wrong. Grandma knew Dad would raid my fund to bail out Dawn, so she created a safety valve clause. Clause 4B. In the event of documented abuse, neglect, or upon the beneficiary turning 18 years of age, full control of the Miller Family Trust and the deed to the primary residence, 14 Oakwood Lane, transfers immediately and irrevocably to Caitlin Miller. My parents were living in my house. They were spending my money. And they didn't even know it. 11:55 p.m. I watched the minutes tick by on my phone screen. Downstairs, the house was silent. They were asleep, confident in their power, secure in the knowledge that I was locked away, helpless. 11:58 p.m. I opened the DocuSign email from Mr. Harland. The documents were dense, filled with legal jargon, but I knew what they meant. Transfer of title, revocation of power of attorney, freezing of assets. 11:59 p.m. I held my breath. My thumb hovered over the sign button. 12 a.m. Happy birthday to me. I pressed the button. Processing. Completed. A notification popped up immediately from Mr. Harland. Received. Filing with the county clerk electronically now. Congratulations, Miss Miller. The house is yours. The money is yours. I have also flagged the joint accounts for suspicious activity as requested. I exhaled. A long, shaky breath. It was done. But I wasn't finished. I opened the folder with the video of Dylan hitting Liam. I attached it to an email addressed to the local police precinct's tip line, the school board, and the local news station. Subject: evidence of hit and run/assault, Dylan Miller, Porsche 911, license plate 4X2-99L. I hit send. I sat back against the wall, pulling my knees to my chest. I felt lighter, powerful. I looked around the dark room. It didn't look like a prison anymore. It looked like a waiting room. Tomorrow, they were going to force me to go to school to apologize. They were going to parade me out to save their reputation. "Okay, Dad," I whispered into the darkness. "I'll go to school. I'll give you a show." I closed my eyes, but I didn't sleep. I visualized the plan, step by step. The outcome had to be absolute, no mercy, because they had shown me none. The snap was over. Now the war began. The smell of the hospice room was distinct. Antiseptic, dying flowers, and the metallic tang of oxygen. I was 15, sitting in the uncomfortable vinyl chair next to Grandma Margaret's bed. She looked so small. The formidable woman who had built a hardware empire from a single garage store was now frail, her skin translucent like parchment paper. My parents were in the hallway arguing. I could hear them even through the closed door. "She needs to sign the amendment, Robert," my mother was hissing. "If she dies before transferring the liquid assets, the estate tax will kill us, and Dylan needs that tuition money for private school." I know, Linda. Keep your voice down, my father snapped back. I'm trying to get her to sign, but the old bat is stubborn. She keeps asking for Caitlin. Well, send the girl in. Make her convince her. The door opened, and Dad poked his head in. His face shifted instantly from annoyance to fake concern. Caitlin, honey, Grandma wants to see you. Make sure you tell her how much we love her, okay? He winked at me, a conspiratorial wink that made my skin crawl, and closed the door. I turned back to Grandma. Her eyes were open. They were cloudy with cataracts, but the sharpness behind them was still there. "They're vultures, Katie," she rasped, her voice barely a whisper, "waiting for the carcass." "Don't say that, Grandma," I said softly, taking her hand. It was cold. "It's the truth. I failed with Robert. I gave him too much, too soon. He never learned the value of $1 because I always gave him another one." She squeezed my hand with surprising strength. "And now he's doing the same to that brother of yours. Dylan is rotten, Katie. Spoiled fruit." I looked down. "He's just young." "He's cruel," she corrected. "I saw how he kicked your dog last Thanksgiving. I saw how he lies. And your parents, they don't see you, child. They look right through you." Tears pricked my eyes. It was the first time anyone had acknowledged the reality of my life. "I won't let them ruin you," she wheezed. "Reach into my nightstand, the bottom drawer, under the Bible." I did as she asked. My fingers brushed against a leather-bound book and found a thick manila envelope beneath it. "Call the number on the card," she instructed. "Thomas Harland. He's on his way. I told the nurses to let him in the back way so your father doesn't see." 10 minutes later, Mr. Harland slipped into the room. He was a tall man with silver hair and a kind face. He looked at me, then at Grandma. "Is this her, Margaret?" "This is her," Grandma said. "The only one with a brain in her head and a heart in her chest." Mr. Harland opened his briefcase and pulled out a stack of documents. "Caitlin, I need you to listen carefully. Your grandmother is restructuring her will." "But Dad said—" "Your father thinks he is inheriting everything," Mr. Harland cut in gently. "And on paper, publicly, he will inherit the operating rights to the business. But the assets, the buildings, the land, the trust funds, and the house at 14 Oakwood Lane are being placed into a generation skipping trust. For you," Grandma said, looking at me intensely. "But I'm a minor," I said, confused. "Exactly," Mr. Harland explained. "Your father will be the trustee until you turn 25, unless—" He tapped a paragraph on page 4. Clause 4B, the Emergency Acceleration Clause. I read the legal text. It was dense, but the meaning was clear. If I turned 18, or if there was proof of financial mismanagement or abuse, the trust would unlock immediately. I would bypass my father entirely. "Why?" I asked, looking at Grandma. "Because one day you will need an escape hatch," she said, her breathing becoming labored. "Your father will drain the accounts for Dylan. He will gamble it away. I worked too hard for 70 years to let that idiot son of mine destroy it. You are the safeguard, Katie. You are the keeper of the legacy." "But you can't tell them," Mr. Harland warned, his voice grave. "If Robert knows about this clause, he will make your life a living hell to force you to sign away your rights before you turn 18. He will try to break you." "Promise me," Grandma whispered, gripping my hand so hard it hurt. "Promise me you will keep it secret. Play the fool, play the quiet daughter, until you have the power." "I promised," I whispered, tears streaming down my face. "Good," she sighed, closing her eyes. "Now, give me the other pen, the one with the fake ink. I need to sign some dummy papers for your father so he leaves me in peace. That was the last real conversation I had with her. She died 3 days later. At the funeral, Dad cried loudly, draping himself over the casket. Mom talked about how blessed they were to carry on her legacy. Dylan played on his Game Boy during the service. I stood in the back, wearing black, silent and invisible. I touched the hidden pocket of my coat where Mr. Harlan's business card was tucked away. I promise, Grandma, I thought, watching my father preen for the condolences of his business partners. I'll play the fool until the clock strikes 12. And now, back in my locked room, 2 years later, the clock had finally struck. The promise was kept. Morning came with the subtlety of a sledgehammer. The lock on my door clicked open at 6:30 a.m. sharp. My father stood there, already dressed in his expensive gray suit, reeking of cologne and arrogance. "Up," he barked. "Today is the day you fix your mess." I sat up in bed. I was still wearing the same clothes from yesterday. My body ached from sleeping in a curled position, but my mind was surprisingly alert. "Happy birthday, Caitlin," I whispered to myself in my head. "Happy Independence Day." "I didn't hear you," Dad snapped. "I said I'm up," I replied, swinging my legs off the bed. He threw a pile of clothes at me. It was my school uniform, the plaid skirt and the navy blazer with the crest. "Get dressed. Mom has your script ready downstairs. You're going to memorize it in the car." "Script?" I asked, raising an eyebrow. "The apology," he said, impatient. "We wrote it for you since you clearly lack the judgment to speak for yourself. You will say you were hormonal, you were jealous, and you doctored the video. You will cry. Make it believable." I looked at the crumpled uniform on the floor. A surge of disgust rose in my throat, but I swallowed it down. "Play the game," Grandma's voice echoed. "Just a little longer." "Okay," I said quietly. He looked surprised by my compliance. He probably expected a fight. "Good. Maybe a night without your toys taught you some respect." He turned to leave, then paused. "And Caitlin, if you pull any stunt today, if you deviate one word from that script, I will pull your college fund. You'll be on the street. Do you understand?" I looked him dead in the eye. "I understand perfectly, Dad." I understood that he couldn't pull a college fund that he no longer controlled. I understood that he was threatening a landlord in her own house. But I just nodded. I dressed slowly. As I buttoned my blazer, I checked under the floorboard one last time. I grabbed the old iPhone and tucked it into the inside pocket of my blazer, right against my heart. It was recording audio. I walked downstairs. The kitchen smelled of bacon and coffee. Dylan was sitting at the island, shoving pancakes into his mouth. He looked perfectly fine. No guilt, no remorse. "Morning, snitch," he mumbled, spraying crumbs. "Dylan," Mom chided gently, pouring him more orange juice. "Be nice. Your sister is going to make everything right today." She turned to me, her eyes cold. "Here." She handed me a piece of paper. I scanned the text. It was humiliating. "I, Caitlin Miller, want to publicly apologize to my brother. Deeply regret my actions. Fabricated evidence. I am seeking counseling for my behavioral issues." "This is fiction," I said. "It's your lifeline," Mom corrected. "Read it. Learn it." "We're taking the Porsche," Dylan announced, grabbing the keys from the counter. "I want to roll up in style when I get cleared." "Actually," Dad said, checking his watch, "I'll drive you both." I want to be there to ensure Caitlin delivers the performance of a lifetime. Dylan, you can drive it home after the assembly. I looked at the shiny key fob in Dylan's hand. That's the last time you'll ever hold those keys, I thought. The car ride to school was suffocating. Dad drove his Mercedes, lecturing me the entire way about family image and loyalty. Dylan sat in the front seat, changing the radio station, completely unbothered. I sat in the back, silent, clutching the script in my hand. When we pulled up to the school, my stomach dropped. There were news vans. "Why is the news here?" I asked. Dad smirked. "I called them. I want this apology broadcasted. We need to clear the family name publicly. If the hit and run made the news, the exoneration needs to make the news too." He had dug his own grave. He had literally invited the audience to his own execution. "Perfect," I murmured. "What?" Dad asked, looking in the rearview mirror. I said, "Perfect. Let's get this over with." We walked into the school. The hallway was buzzing. Students whispered as we passed. "That's the guy," someone muttered. "That's his sister." Principal Thompson was waiting for us by the auditorium doors. He looked uncomfortable. "Mr. Miller, are you sure about this assembly? Usually these matters are handled privately." "My son's reputation was attacked publicly, Thompson," Dad blustered. "The remedy must be public. Caitlin has something she wants to say to the student body." He shoved me forward. "I do," I said, meeting the principal's eyes. "I really do." The auditorium was packed, 500 students, teachers, and a local news crew with their cameras set up in the back. Dylan sat in the front row with Mom and Dad, crossing his legs, looking like a king on his throne. He gave me a thumbs up, mocking me. I walked up the steps to the stage. The microphone stand looked lonely in the center of the spotlight. My heart was pounding so hard I thought the mic would pick it up. This was it, the point of no return. I reached into my pocket and touched the phone. I felt the vibration. A text from Mr. Harland. "Everything is filed. The police have the package. Good luck." I unfolded the paper Mom had given me. I smoothed it out on the podium. The room went silent. "My parents wrote this speech for me," I began, my voice wavering slightly before strengthening. "They wanted me to tell you that I lied, that I edited the video, that my brother is innocent." I looked down at Dad. He was nodding encouragingly, a smug smile on his face. "But," I continued, "I was raised to tell the truth." Dad's smile faltered. I reached into my Maisonplatzert, not for the phone, but for a USB drive I had palmed earlier. I plugged it into the podium's AV console. "And the truth," I said, looking directly into the camera lens at the back of the room, "is that some people think money can buy silence. Today, it doesn't." I hit the spacebar on the laptop. The screen behind me exploded into life. The massive projector screen descended behind me. The video didn't start with the crash. It started with the audio I had recorded in the car just 20 minutes ago. Dad's voice boomed through the auditorium speakers. "You will say you were hormonal, you were jealous, and you doctored the video. If you deviate one word, I will pull your college fund. You'll be on the street." A gasp rippled through the crowd. I saw Dad stand up in the front row, his face draining of color. He looked like he'd been slapped. "Cut the mic," he screamed at Principal Thompson. "Turn it off. She's lying." But I had locked the console. Then the video cut to the footage from yesterday, but this was the high-definition version I had saved to the cloud, not the compressed one I sent the principal initially. On the giant screen, everyone saw the Porsche 911 slam into Liam. The sound of the impact was deafening in the auditorium. They saw Dylan step out. They heard him scream, "You scratched the paint?" Clearly. They saw him kick the bike. They saw him laugh as he drove away. The auditorium erupted. It wasn't just murmurs anymore. It was outrage. Students were standing up, booing. Someone threw a water bottle at the stage, not at me, but toward Dylan. Dylan was shrinking in his seat, his face pale green. Mom was clutching her pearls, looking around frantically as if searching for an exit. "Turn it off!" Dad was charging toward the stage now, his face a mask of pure fury. "You ungrateful little witch! I'll kill you!" He scrambled up the stairs, reaching for me. "I wouldn't do that, Mr. Pina." "Miller!" A deep voice boomed from the side entrance. The double doors swung open. 3 uniformed police officers walked in. The room went deathly silent again, save for the hum of the projector. "Dylan Miller?" the lead officer asked, walking down the aisle. Dylan squeaked. He literally squeaked. I didn't." "We have a warrant for your arrest for reckless endangerment, leaving the scene of an accident with injury and assault," the officer said, pulling out a pair of handcuffs. The metal glinted under the auditorium lights. "You can't arrest him!" Mom shrieked, jumping up and grabbing the officer's arm. "He's a minor. He's a good boy. This is a misunderstanding." "Ma'am, step back or you'll be arrested for obstruction," the officer warned sternly. He turned Dylan around and clicked the cuffs onto his wrists. The sound of the handcuffs clicking shut was the sweetest sound I had ever heard, better than any symphony. "Dad," Dylan wailed, tears streaming down his face, snot running from his nose. "Do something. Fix it." Dad was frozen on the stairs, halfway to the stage. He looked from me to the police, then to the news cameras that were capturing every single second of his family's humiliation. Dad stammered. The king had lost his crown. "And Mr. Robert Miller," another officer said, stepping toward the stage, "we also have questions for you regarding the intimidation of a witness. We heard the recording." The crowd cheered. Liam, standing in the back with his arm in a sling, pumped his fist in the air. I leaned into the microphone one last time. "I'm sorry," I said, my voice calm and echoing through the hall. "I'm sorry I didn't do this sooner." I unplugged the USB drive, walked down the stairs, and walked right past my father. He tried to grab my arm, his grip bruising. "You're dead to me," he hissed, his eyes burning with hate. "You hear me? You have nothing. No home. No money. You are done." I pulled my arm away, dusting off the sleeve of my blazer where he had touched me. "We'll see," I said. As the police led Dylan away, sobbing like a toddler, the principal dismissed the assembly, but nobody moved. They were too busy filming the fallout on their phones. I walked out of the school auditorium and into the bright morning sunlight. The air tasted different. It tasted like freedom, but I knew this was just the battle. The war would continue at home. My phone buzzed. It was Thomas Harland. "Harland, police are processing the arrest. I'm on my way to 14 Oakwood Lane with security. Meet me there. It's time to serve the eviction notice." I smiled. Dad thought he had kicked me out. He didn't realize he was the one who was about to be homeless. I called an Uber. "Where to?" the driver asked when I got in. 14 Oakwood Lane, I said. "My house." When I arrived, the house looked the same. Grand, imposing, manicured lawn. But the energy had shifted. I waited on the porch. 20 minutes later, Dad's Mercedes screeched into the driveway. Mom and Dad got out, looking disheveled and furious. They had probably been told to leave the police station and get a lawyer. They stormed up the driveway. "You!" Dad roared, pointing a shaking finger at me. "How dare you sit on my porch? Get off my property! I told you, you are cut off." "Open the door, Robert," Mom cried. "I need to get Dylan's birth certificate for the lawyer." Dad marched up the steps, keys in hand. He shoved past me and jammed his key into the lock. It didn't turn, jiggling it. What the hell? He tried again. Nothing. "The lock is jammed," he muttered. "No, it's not," I said calmly, leaning against the railing. "It's changed." "What did you say?" Dad turned slowly to face me. "I called a locksmith an hour ago," I said, checking my nails, "while you were chasing the police car." "You..." You changed the locks on my house? Dad laughed, a hysterical, incredulous sound. Have you lost your mind? I'm going to break this door down, and then I'm going to break you. He raised his foot to kick the door. I wouldn't do that, Mr. Miller, a voice called out from the driveway. Two large men in black suits stepped out of a black SUV that had just pulled up. Behind them was Thomas Harland, holding a leather briefcase. Who are you? Dad demanded. Private security, Thomas said smoothly, and I am Miss Caitlin Miller's attorney. Her attorney? Dad scoffed. She's 17. She can't hire an attorney. She turned 18, Robert, Thomas said, his voice dropping the pleasantries. And as of 12:01 a.m., pursuant to the terms of the Margaret Miller Estate Trust, Clause 4B, this house and all associated assets belong to her. Dad froze. The color drained from his face for the second time that day. That's impossible. Mother left that to me. Thomas pulled a document from his briefcase, a deed with a gold seal. She left you as the trustee, with conditions. Conditions you violated. It's over, Robert. I stepped forward, standing between my parents and the front door. You're trespassing, I said, my voice echoing the words he had said to me so many times. Get off my property. My father stared at the deed in Thomas's hand as if it were a venomous snake. His brain was trying to process the impossible shift in reality. This is fake, he spat, his voice trembling with rage. You forged this, just like she doctored that video. I assure you, Mr. Miller, it is very real, Thomas said, stepping onto the porch to stand beside me. The two security guards, massive men with oak tree necks, flanked us. The electronic filing was confirmed by the county clerk this morning. You are no longer the owner of this property. You are, legally speaking, a guest who has overstayed their welcome. This is my house, Mom screamed, lunging forward. I picked out these curtains. I planted those roses. You can't just take it. One of the security guards stepped in front of her. He didn't touch her. He just existed in her space, an immovable wall of muscle. She recoiled. Linda, stop, Dad said, his eyes darting around. He was looking for an angle, a weakness. He looked at me. Caitlin, honey, look, things got heated today. We were stressed about Dylan, but let's not be ridiculous. You can't kick your own parents out on the street. We're family. The switch was instantaneous. The gaslighting, the sudden pivot from I'll kill you to we're family. It was so predictable, it was almost boring. Family, I repeated, looking him dead in the eye. Family doesn't lock their daughter in a room with nailed shut windows. Family doesn't force their child to lie to protect a criminal. We were protecting him, Mom sobbed. He's your brother. He's a bully you created, I said, and now you can deal with him without my money. Your money? Dad scoffed, his temper slipping again. It's my mother's money. I built this life. You spent this life, Thomas corrected him. We have the audit records, Robert. You've drained the operating accounts, you've dipped into the employee pension fund, and you've been siphoning money from Caitlin's future trust to pay off Dylan's gambling debts. It's embezzlement. Dad went white. You audited me? I did, I said. I've been watching you steal from me for years, Dad. I just waited until I had the authority to stop you. You little witch, Dad growled, taking a step toward me, fists clenched. The security guard put a hand on Dad's chest. Sir, back away, or you will be detained for assault. Again. Dad slapped the hand away, but he stepped back. He realized he was outgunned. Fine, he spat. Fine. You want the house? Take it. It has a mortgage anyway. Actually, Thomas smiled thin and sharp. The mortgage was paid off by the trust 3 years ago. It's free and clear. And since you mention money, Thomas pulled out another envelope. This is a cease and desist regarding the company credit cards and the family expense accounts. They have been frozen. You can't do that, Mom gasped. I have to buy groceries. I have to pay the lawyer for Dylan. Use your own money, I said. Oh, wait, you don't have any. You haven't worked in 20 years. I am your mother, she shrieked. And I am the landlord, I said coldly. You have 24 hours to remove your personal effects. The security team will supervise you. Anything left after tomorrow noon will be donated to charity. 24 hours? Dad yelled. Where are we supposed to go? I don't know, I shrugged. Maybe ask Dylan. He seems to have all the answers. I turned to the security guard. Let them in to pack essentials only. Clothes and toiletries. No furniture, no art, no electronics bought with company funds. If they try to take the silverware, stop them. Understood, Miss Miller, the guard nodded. I walked into the house. My house. It felt huge, and for the first time, it didn't feel like a cage. I sat in the living room while my parents ran around upstairs, throwing things into suitcases. I could hear them screaming at each other. I told you not to spoil him, Dad yelled. Me, you're the one who bought him the Porsche, Mom screamed back. Shut up, Linda. Where is my watch? The Rolex, where is it? I sipped a glass of water, watching the chaos. Thomas sat opposite me. You okay, kid? I'm tired, I admitted, but I'm good. The police called, Thomas said. Dylan's bail is set at $50,000. Usually, your father would just write a check. But the accounts are frozen, I said, a smile tugging at my lips. Exactly, Thomas grinned. They're going to have to use a bail bondsman. That requires 10% cash and collateral. They don't have the cash, and they can't use the house as collateral anymore. So Dylan stays in jail? For the weekend at least, until they can pawn some jewelry. Upstairs, there was a loud crash. Then Dad came thundering down the stairs, carrying a duffel bag. We're leaving, he announced. But this isn't over, Caitlin. I'm going to sue you. I'm going to find a lawyer who will rip that trust apart. I will prove you manipulated Grandma while she was senile. You can try, Thomas said calmly, but we have video testimony from Margaret declaring her sound mind. And we have the audit of your theft. If you sue Robert, you will go to prison for embezzlement. Right now, Caitlin is being generous by just firing you. Dad paused. His eyes narrowed. He knew Thomas was right. He had no leverage. He looked at me one last time. There was no love in his eyes, only hatred. I should have sent you to boarding school when you were 5. You should have, I agreed. I would have been happier. He stormed out the door. Mom followed, dragging a suitcase, sobbing loudly. She didn't even look at me. The door slammed shut. The silence that followed wasn't heavy like before. It was peaceful. Well, Thomas said, standing up, I'll have the security team stay on rotation for the next week, just in case. Thank you, Thomas, for everything. He nodded and left. I was alone. I walked to the kitchen. I opened the fridge. It was full of food that Mom had bought yesterday. Premium steaks, expensive wine, organic vegetables. I grabbed the steak. I grabbed the butter. I cooked myself the best dinner I had ever had. I ate it sitting at the head of the dining table where my father used to sit. I thought it was over. But I was wrong. The financial collapse was just beginning, and desperate people do dangerous things. My phone buzzed. It was a text from an unknown number. You think you won? You better sleep with one eye open. It was Dylan. He must have borrowed a phone in the holding cell. I blocked the number. Try me, I whispered to the empty room. The next morning, the reality of the financial blockade hit my parents like a tsunami. I didn't have to see it to know it was happening. I could track it on my laptop. As the new trustee, I had a dashboard view of every attempted transaction on the family accounts. 8:15 a.m. Declined. Transaction, Starbucks. Amount, $18.45. Card, Amex Platinum, Robert Miller. 9:30 a.m. Declined. Transaction, Motel 6. Amount, $89. Card, Visa Signature, Linda Miller. I laughed. They were trying to check into a cheap motel because they couldn't go back to the Four Seasons, and even that was bouncing. They must have been furious. I sat on the patio of my house, drinking coffee, watching the sun come up over the garden. The gardener, Mr. Hernandez, waved at me. I waved back. I had already called him and doubled his salary, ensuring his loyalty remained with the person who signed the checks, me. Around 10 a.m., my phone rang. It was the bank manager at the local branch, Mr. Henderson. He sounded frantic. "Miss Miller, this is Greg Henderson. Your father is here. He is causing a scene." "Put him on speaker, Greg," I said calmly. "I don't think that's a good idea." "I demand to speak to the manager's manager," I heard Dad shouting in the background. "This is theft. My daughter stole my identity. Unfreeze these accounts right now or I will have your job." "Greg, put him on speaker," I repeated. There was a fumbling sound, and then Dad's voice came through, loud and distorted. "Caitlin, what did you do? The cards aren't working. We can't even buy breakfast." "That's how freezing assets works, Dad," I said, sipping my coffee. "You are under investigation for embezzlement from the trust. Until the forensic accountants finish their report, you don't get a dime." "I need to bail out your brother," he screamed. "He's in a cell with criminals." "He is a criminal, Dad. He fits right in." "You heartless! Listen to me. The bank is seizing the cars. They're towing the Mercedes right now because the lease was under the company name." "Good," I said. "The company isn't paying for your luxury rides anymore. You can take the bus." "The bus?" he sputtered. "I am Robert Miller." "You're Robert Miller, the unemployed man with 0 credit score," I corrected. "Goodbye, Dad." I hung up. The schadenfreude, the joy in the misfortune of others, was intoxicating. For years, they had mocked me for saving money. They had mocked me for driving a used Honda, which I bought with my own tutoring money, thank God, so it was in my name. They lived like royalty on Grandma's dime. Now they were learning what the real world tasted like. But the biggest blow was yet to come. Thomas had informed me that the Porsche 911, the catalyst for all of this, was technically bought with the loan against the house. Since the house title had transferred to me and the loan payments were 3 months behind, Dad was sloppy, the bank had the right to call the loan. Or I could pay it off and keep the car. I decided to do something better. I called the bank. "Hi, this is Caitlin Miller. Regarding the Porsche 911, yes, I don't want it. Let the bank repossess it. But tell them to pick it up from the police impound lot. It might have some front-end damage." I hung up, imagining Dylan's face when he eventually got out and realized his beloved car was gone forever. That afternoon, I went to the store. I didn't take the bus. I didn't drive my Honda. I called a luxury car service. A black Rolls-Royce Ghost pulled into my driveway. It was excessive, yes, but I was making a point to myself. I went to the grocery store where my mother usually shopped, the high-end organic market. As I was walking down the aisle, I saw her. Mom was standing at the checkout counter, arguing with the cashier. She looked haggard. Her hair wasn't done. She was wearing yesterday's clothes. "Just try the card again," she was pleading. "It's a mistake." "Ma'am, it says, card seized by issuer," the teenage cashier said, looking embarrassed. "I can't try it again. You have to pay cash." "I don't carry cash," Mom snapped. Behind her, a line of impatient customers was forming. She looked around, frantic, and her eyes locked on mine. I was standing there, holding a basket with fresh fruit and a bottle of expensive champagne. "Caitlin," she gasped. "Oh, thank God. Caitlin, come here. Pay for this. My cards are acting up." She waved me over like I was still her servant. I walked up to the register. The cashier looked at me, then back at Mom. "Actually," I said to the cashier, ignoring Mom, "I'm next. Can you open another lane?" "Caitlin?" Mom's eyes went wide. "What are you doing? I need these groceries. It's just bread and milk and—" She gestured to the cart, which was full of expensive wine and chocolates. Even now, she couldn't budget. "You should probably put the wine back, Mom," I said calmly. "Tap water is free." She trembled. "How can you be so cruel?" "I learned from the best," I said. I turned to the cashier in the next lane. "I'll take these, please." I pulled out my own debit card, the one linked to my new, unfettered account. Mom stood there, humiliated, as the manager came over to ask her to step aside or pay up. She had to leave the cart. She walked out of the store empty-handed, head bowed. I watched her go through the glass windows. I felt a twinge of pity, but I stomped it out immediately. If I gave her money now, she would give it to Dad. Dad would give it to a lawyer to attack me, or they would bail out Dylan. No, I told myself, starving the beast is the only way to kill it. I got back into the Rolls-Royce. "Where to next, Miss Miller?" the driver asked. "The Porsche dealership," I said. "I think I need a new car, and I'm not getting a blue one." The financial collapse of the Miller dynasty was complete. They had no home, no cars, no credit. And their golden boy was sitting in a cell wearing an orange jumpsuit. But as I watched the city pass by, I knew a cornered animal bites the hardest. They had nothing left to lose, and that made them dangerous. The deadline was noon, not 12:01 p.m., not around lunchtime, noon. I sat on the hood of the black SUV parked in the driveway, flanked by the security team Thomas had hired. The sun was high and unforgiving, much like my mood. I checked my watch, 11:45 a.m. A beat-up yellow taxi pulled up to the curb. My parents had managed to bail Dylan out. I found out later they had pawned Mom's diamond wedding ring, the one Grandma had given her, at a fraction of its value just to post his bond. It was poetic, really. They sold their symbol of eternal love to save the symbol of their eternal failure. Dylan stepped out of the taxi. He looked awful. His designer clothes were wrinkled from a night in the holding cell, his hair was greasy, and his eyes were red-rimmed. But the moment he saw me, that familiar sneer returned. He marched up the driveway, ignoring the security guards, and came straight for me. "You?" he spat, his voice cracking. "You think this is funny? I slept on a concrete bench." "You're lucky you slept at all," I said, not looking up from my phone. Most people who hit pedestrians don't get out this fast. "It's my house," he screamed, looking at the closed front door. "I need my stuff. I need my PlayStation. I need my sneakers." "You have 15 minutes, I said, pointing to the door where the security lead, a man named Mike, was holding a clipboard. Mike has a list of approved items, clothing and toiletries only. If you try to take the gaming console, which was purchased with company funds, Mike will confiscate it. "I'm going to kill you," Dylan muttered. Mike stepped forward, his shadow engulfing Dylan. "Threatening the homeowner is a violation of your bail conditions, son. I watch your mouth." Dylan shrank back. He was a bully, and like all bullies, he crumbled the moment he faced someone who could actually hurt him. He ran inside. The next 15 minutes were a symphony of chaos. I could hear shouting from inside the house. "Put that down, Mrs. Miller. That painting belongs to the trust." "But it's a portrait of me." "Paid for by the hardware store's marketing budget. Put it down." At 11:58 a.m., the front door opened. My father walked out first. He was carrying 2 suitcases. He looked older than he had yesterday. His posture, usually so upright and arrogant, was slumped. He stopped in front of me. "Caitlin," he said. His voice was low, almost a whisper. "Please, don't do this. Where are we supposed to go? We have no cash. The cards are frozen." He dropped the suitcases and looked at me with pleading eyes. For a second, I saw the father I had wanted when I was 6 years old, the man I thought would protect me. "We can fix this," he continued, taking a step closer. "I'll make you CFO, real CFO, not just in title. We can run the company together, you, me, and Dylan." Family. There it was. And Dylan. Even when he was begging for his life, he couldn't leave the golden boy out of the equation. "The company is undergoing a forensic audit, Dad," I said coldly. "There is no company to run, and there is no us. You made sure of that when you locked me in a room and nailed the windows shut. I was trying to discipline you. You were trying to break me, and you failed." Mom came out next, dragging a bag that looked too heavy for her. She was crying, loud, heaving sobs meant to attract the neighbors' attention. "My baby," she wailed, looking at the house. "My beautiful home." Then came Dylan. He was carrying a duffel bag, but he was walking strangely. He kept one hand shoved deep into his pocket. I narrowed my eyes. "Mike, check his pockets." "What? No!" Dylan shouted, backing away. "You can't touch me." "Check him," I ordered. Mike grabbed Dylan's arm. Dylan flailed, trying to break free, but Mike was a professional. He easily restrained him and reached into the pocket of Dylan's hoodie. He pulled out a set of keys, not car keys, a small brass key with a red tag. My blood ran cold. "The Ferrari," I whispered. Grandpa's 1967 Ferrari 275 GTB4. It had been sitting in the climate-controlled garage for decades. It was the crown jewel of the estate. It was worth millions. "You were going to steal the Ferrari?" I asked, walking up to him. "You don't even know how to drive a stick shift, you idiot. You would have stripped the gears before you got out of the driveway." "It's Grandpa's car," Dylan screamed. "He would have wanted me to have it. I'm the grandson. I carry the name." "Grandpa hated you," I said, taking the key from Mike. "He told me before he died. He said you were spoiled fruit. He left the car to the trust. To me." I pocketed the key. "Get out now, or I call the police and tell them you attempted grand theft auto while on bail." Dylan looked at his parents, waiting for them to defend him. But Dad was staring at the ground, defeated. Mom was too busy crying over her lost curtains. "I hate you," Dylan hissed. "The feeling is mutual. Get off my property." They dragged their suitcases down the driveway. The neighbors were watching from their windows. The mailman stopped to look. It was the walk of shame to end all walks of shame. They reached the curb just as an Uber X, a dented Toyota Camry, pulled up. They struggled to fit their luggage into the small trunk. Dad had to hold one suitcase on his lap in the back seat. As the car pulled away, I didn't feel sad. I didn't feel guilty. I felt a massive, crushing weight lift off my chest. The air tasted sweeter. The colors of the trees looked brighter. I turned to the security team. "Change the perimeter codes. No one gets in without my voice authorization." "Yes, ma'am," Mike said, a hint of respect in his voice. I walked back into the house. My footsteps echoed in the foyer. It was empty of their noise, their toxicity, their constant demands. I walked to the kitchen, poured a glass of water, and leaned against the granite counter. I had done it. I had faced the monsters under my bed, and I had evicted them. Thank you so much for watching this far. If you are someone who believes in justice, who believes that toxic family members don't get a free pass just because of blood, then you are my kind of person. You are amazing and you are resilient. Please help me out by hitting that like button and commenting the number 1 down below. Let me know that you're with me, that you've walked this road with me to the very end. Comment number 1 right now. The weeks that followed were a blur of legal meetings, but the silence from my family was deafening. It wasn't until a month later that I learned the full extent of their fall. I didn't seek out the information, but in a small town, gossip travels faster than light. And because I was now the ruthless heiress who kicked out her parents, everyone wanted to tell me the gossip. They hadn't gone to a hotel. They couldn't afford one that would take them long term. They had rented a 2-bedroom apartment on the south side of town, near the industrial park. It was a complex known for thin walls, mold issues, and police sirens at 3 a.m. Kayla, my friend whose dad was a property manager, told me about it. "It's bad, Caitlin," she said over coffee, her eyes wide. "My dad manages the building. He said your dad tried to negotiate the security deposit by offering business consulting services. My dad laughed in his face and demanded cash." "Did they pay?" I asked. "They sold your mom's designer handbags to a pawn shop for pennies on the dollar." I took a sip of my latte. It tasted delicious, but the real schadenfreude came from the court proceedings. Dylan's trial was swift. Because I refused to recant my statement and provided the high-definition video, and because Liam's family sued for medical damages, Dylan's lawyer, a public defender since they couldn't afford a private one anymore, advised him to take a plea deal. He pleaded no contest to reckless endangerment and assault. The judge, a stern woman who had zero patience for entitled rich kids, handed down the sentence. "Mr. Miller," she had said, looking over her glasses at Dylan, who was wearing an ill-fitting suit he bought at a thrift store, "you have lived a life of privilege without responsibility. That ends today." His sentence: 2 years of probation, mandatory anger management classes, and 500 hours of community service. And not just any community service. The judge specifically assigned him to the city's sanitation department. My brother, the golden boy who used to scream if his steak was slightly overcooked, was now spending his weekends picking up trash along the highway in a neon orange vest. I admit, I drove by once, just once. I saw him. He was stabbing a piece of dirty fast food wrapper with a stick, sweat dripping down his face. A car drove by and honked. He flipped them off, and his supervisor immediately yelled at him. He slumped his shoulders and went back to picking up trash. It was a beautiful sight. As for my parents, their descent was less public but equally humiliating. Dad tried to get a job in executive management. He sent out his resume to every firm in the city. But the audit of Miller Hardware had become public record during the civil suit I filed to recover the stolen funds. No one wanted to hire a CEO who embezzled from his own mother's estate. He ended up taking a job as a night security guard at the local mall. The irony was palpable. The man who used to terrorize his employees was now wearing a polyester uniform, walking around an empty building, flashing a flashlight into dark corners. One night, I went to the movies at that mall with some friends. We were walking out late, laughing. I saw him. He was standing by the entrance, looking tired and old. He saw me, too. He straightened up, trying to regain some shred of dignity. He opened his mouth to say something, maybe to yell, maybe to beg, but I didn't stop. I didn't even slow down. I looked right through him, just like he had looked through me for 17 years. He was a ghost in a cheap uniform. And Mom? Mom was the tragic figure she always wanted to be. She got a job washing dishes at a diner. She told everyone who would listen that her ungrateful daughter stole her inheritance. She played the victim to anyone who would tip her an extra $1. But the town knew the truth. They had seen the video. They knew what kind of mother raised a son who would hit a kid with a Porsche and drive away. Speaking of the Porsche 911, the bank finally repossessed it. But because of the damage to the front bumper and the depreciation, the sale of the car didn't cover the loan balance. The bank garnished Dad's wages. Every paycheck he earned from walking the mall at night, 25% was taken to pay for the car his son crashed. It was a cycle of misery they had built for themselves, brick by brick. Sometimes, late at night, in the quiet of my big house, I would wonder if I felt bad. Was I too harsh? Was I cruel? Then I would remember the lock on my door. I would remember the hunger. I would remember Dylan laughing while I cried. And I would sleep like a baby. They were learning the one lesson they never taught me. Actions have consequences. But while they were sinking, I was determined to rise. I wasn't going to be just the girl who sued her parents. I was going to be something more. I started making plans for the house. It was too big for one person. It was filled with ghosts of a childhood I wanted to forget. It was time to liquidate the past and invest in the future. The for sale sign on the lawn of 14 Oakwood Lane was the final nail in the coffin of the Miller family legacy. I sold the house. I sold the furniture. I sold the china. I sold everything that had a memory attached to it. The market was hot, and the estate sold for $2.4 million. Combined with the liquid assets Grandma left me and the recovered funds from the hardware store accounts, I was sitting on a net worth that would allow me to do anything I wanted. But I didn't go buy a yacht. I didn't blow it on parties. I invested. I kept a small portion liquid for living expenses and put the rest into a diversified portfolio, index funds, real estate trusts, and emerging tech. I hired a financial advisor who treated me with respect, not because of my last name, but because I asked smart questions. I moved into the city. I bought a penthouse apartment in a modern building with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the skyline. It was stark, clean, and open. No dark corners, no locks on the inside of the doors. The only indulgence I allowed myself was a car. I had always loved cars, a passion I had to hide because cars were boy things in my family. Dylan got the Porsche because he was the boy. I drove the used Honda. Not anymore. I bought a Rolls-Royce Ghost, black on black. It wasn't a sports car like Dylan's. It was a statement. It was a rolling fortress of silence and power. It didn't scream for attention. It commanded it. 6 months after the eviction, I drove the Rolls-Royce back to my old high school. I wasn't there to gloat. I was there for Liam. Liam, the boy Dylan had hit, had recovered physically, but his family was drowning in medical bills. Even with the lawsuit, the payout was slow coming because my parents were bankrupt. I pulled into the parking lot, the same lot where the accident happened. The students stopped and stared. The spirit of ecstasy on the hood of my car gleamed in the sun. I stepped out. I was wearing a tailored white suit, the opposite of the black I used to wear to disappear. I put on my sunglasses and walked to the administration office. I requested a meeting with the principal and Liam. When Liam walked in, he looked nervous. He saw me and flinched slightly. "It's okay, Liam," I said, smiling softly. "I'm not them." "I know," he said quietly. "You saved me, with the video." "I want to do more than that," I said. I pulled an envelope out of my bag. Inside was a check. It was enough to cover all his medical bills, plus his college tuition. "This is from the Miller Trust," I lied. It was from my personal account, but I wanted him to feel like justice was being served institutionally. "We are settling the debt my brother created." Liam looked at the check, then at me. Tears welled up in his eyes. "Caitlin, I can't. This is too much." "It's not enough," I said, "but it's a start. Go to college, Liam. Be brilliant. Don't let a Miller ruin your life." Walking back to my car, I felt lighter than I ever had. As I was pulling out of the school zone, I saw a familiar orange vest on the side of the road. It was Dylan. He was serving his community service hours, picking up soda cans from the ditch near the school entrance. I slowed the Rolls-Royce down to a crawl. The window glided down silently. He looked up. He saw the car first, the massive grille, the gleaming paint. His eyes widened in awe. Then he saw the driver. His jaw dropped. He stood there, holding a trash picker, frozen. He looked dirty, sweaty, and miserable. I looked at him over the top of my sunglasses. I didn't say a word. I didn't smile. I just looked at him with absolute indifference. Then I pressed the button to roll up the window. The glass sealed me back into my quiet, air-conditioned sanctuary. I tapped the accelerator. The V12 engine whispered, and the car glided away, leaving him in a cloud of dust and exhaust. I looked in the rearview mirror. He was still standing there, watching me go, shrinking smaller and smaller, until he was just a speck of orange against the gray pavement. That was the moment I truly won. Not because I had money, not because I had a nice car, but because he no longer held any power over me. He was just a stranger on the side of the road. I drove back to the city, to my penthouse, to my life. I enrolled in university that fall, pre-law. I knew exactly what kind of lawyer I wanted to be. I wanted to be Thomas Harland. I wanted to be the person who handed the weapon to the victim. I wanted to be the nightmare for parents who thought they owned their children. I studied like my life depended on it, because it did. 5 years later. The office of Miller & Associates was quiet, save for the hum of the city outside the 40th floor window. I sat at my mahogany desk, reviewing a case file. It was a tough one, a 17-year-old girl whose parents were stealing her earnings from her acting career. I picked up my pen and circled a clause in the contract. Emancipation. That was the key. At 23, I was the youngest partner in the firm's history. Well, since I owned the firm, it wasn't hard to make partner. But I had earned my degree in record time, graduating top of my class from Georgetown Law. My life was full. I had friends who knew me for me, not for my family's drama. I had a fiancé, Mark, who was a pediatrician, kind, gentle, and the complete opposite of the men in my family. And I had Justice. Justice was my golden retriever. I named him that because he was loyal, goofy, and frankly, I liked the irony of yelling, "Justice is here," whenever he ran into the room. My phone buzzed on the desk. It was the reception. "Miss Miller, there is a letter for you. It has no return address, but it's postmarked from the state penitentiary." I froze for a second. Dylan. He had violated his probation 3 years ago, drug possession and assault in a bar fight. He was currently serving a 5-year sentence. "Bring it in," I said. My assistant placed the envelope on my desk. It was cheap paper, scrawled with handwriting I recognized instantly. Jagged, messy, angry. I stared at it. For a moment, the old fear flickered. The fear of the girl locked in the room. The fear of the screaming. But then I looked around my office. I looked at my diploma on the wall. I looked at the photo of Mark and me in Paris. I looked at Justice sleeping on the rug. I wasn't that girl anymore. I picked up the letter opener, a heavy silver blade that felt cool in my hand. I slit the envelope open. I pulled out the letter. "Caitlin, I know you're rich now. Mom told me. Look, I've changed. Prison is hell. I need money for the commissary. I need a good lawyer for my appeal. We're family. Blood is thicker than water. Don't ignore me. If you help me, I promise I won't come after you when I get out. Love, Dylan. P.S. Dad had a stroke. He's in a state nursing home. Mom moved in with her sister in Ohio. They're miserable. Are you happy now?" I read it twice. Blood is thicker than water. People always get that quote wrong. The full quote is, "The blood of the covenant is thicker than the water of the womb." It means the bonds you choose, the friends, the partners, the allies, are stronger than the bonds you are born into. Dylan hadn't changed. He was still demanding, still threatening, still entitled. He thought a threat wrapped in a plea would work on me. "Are you happy now?" he asked. I looked out the window at the sprawling city of Washington, D.C. The sun was setting, painting the Potomac River in shades of gold and violet. I thought about the girl who sat on the floor of her room, counting seconds until midnight on her 18th birthday. I thought about the terror of facing the world alone, and I realized something. I wasn't just happy, I was free. I didn't hate them anymore. Hate requires energy. Hate requires you to care. I didn't care. They were just characters in a bad book I had finished reading a long time ago. I stood up and walked to the shredder in the corner of the room. I fed the letter into the machine. Rrrr. The paper turned into confetti. The threats, the guilt trips, the love, all of it, gone in seconds. I didn't write back. I didn't send money. I didn't call the nursing home. I went back to my desk and picked up the file of the 17-year-old actress. I picked up my phone and dialed her number. "Hi, Sarah," I said when she answered. "This is Caitlin Miller. I have a plan. We're going to get you out." That is my revenge. Not punishing them. Life did that for me. My revenge is living well. My revenge is using the fire they burned me with to light the way for others. So, if you are listening to this and you feel trapped, if you feel like the people who are supposed to love you are the ones hurting you, if you feel small, listen to me. You are stronger than you know. You are smarter than they think. And there is a clock ticking for you too. Your midnight is coming. Hold on. Gather your receipts. Build your plan. And when the door opens, don't look back. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for letting me share this journey with you.